Hi, I'm Roy Collin, the host of the podcast. You can find everything about me by scanning the QR code there or going to roycollin.com, and you'll find my 6 podcasts: the Podfather, helping people become podcasters; the Awakening, exposing fraud and corruption but with solutions; the Crypto, all things blockchain technology; meditation podcast; speaking podcast; and the Learn Polish podcast. You can also help the show by actually making a donation, visiting the store, or helping my sponsors. I hope you enjoyed this week's show. Welcome to the Speaking Podcast. You can find all our episodes on speakingpodcast.com. My guest today, from losing his home, his job, and his marriage to rebuilding it all, which I can say same happened to me. He's revolutionizing sales through his Adaptive Conversational Blueprint and Fractional Chief Learning Officer. That's something I haven't heard before, so he's going to tell us what that is. Please welcome Jake Stahl.
Thank you for having me, Roy. This is quite a pleasure. Thank you.
Oh, thanks for coming on. So let's start off. What's Fractional Chief Learning Officer?
Well, the fractional movement is really growing. It's a movement that basically, instead of hiring a consultant or instead of hiring an agency to help you out, you hire what's called a fractional worker. And fractional workers come in and they typically take the place of a C-suite executive. So you can have a fractional chief marketing officer, fractional chief operating officer. But what makes them fractional is 2 things. The first is they are there for a fraction of the time. So in other words, we may do work for you a couple of hours a week, and then we're kind of on call for emails and text messages. So a lot of what we do doesn't require a full-time gig. The second part of the fractional is we come in at a fractional price. So because you're only seeing us a couple of hours per week, you're not paying the overhead of having me on full time. You're not paying for benefits. You're not paying for my health insurance. So you're getting the quality of a C-suite executive, but you're getting it at a fraction of the price. So fraction of the time, fraction of the price, fractional chief learning officer.
And is that something that's popular? Is that popular? Like, is that something? Because I hadn't heard of that before, but I think it's fantastic. And plus, I think you wouldn't get involved with the politics, which happens in every company. And when you're working like that, you probably get better results.
Yeah, no question about that, Roy. Yeah, it's growing in popularity. I think as of this year, LinkedIn has probably doubled the amount of people that were fractional. And I'll be frank with you, I had never heard of it. But one day I had read the term and I said to my wife, apparently I'm fractional. So I've been doing this for about 10 years. And as a chief learning officer, I'm somewhat of a unicorn. There's not many of us out there, but I will head up training and development for a company, build out a training department, build onboarding, teach their salespeople. And then once I'm done, I walk away and you don't have the overhead of me anymore. And I turn it all back over to the company.
And I don't want to ask about your own fees and stuff like that, but what I would like for those that are considering that maybe just learnt about it, is it something that you look at the position, what the yearly fee is, plus they'd have all the benefits, as you mentioned, and then divide it by a certain number? Is there a way of calculating to know your value?
Well, different fractionals charge different fees, and we have different fee structures. So I may get a client that says, we'd like you to do X. And I'll say, okay, so then I'm going to dedicate probably a couple of hours a week to you, plus I'll be constantly on call. Other fractionals may be on call all the time, and they're held on retainer. So the company has so many hours they've bought for the fractional learning per month, and then they pay for those hours. But I can tell you, for a chief learning officer in the US, you're probably going to pay $220 to $240, and I come in at well below that. And to be honest with you, Roy, you don't need me full time. I can come in and design out a program for you simply and easily without you having to pay me for a 40-hour work week.
I think it helps a lot of companies, especially those growing, when they can't afford to have a full-time employee, but yet they need the service and they can't be outsourcing it, to the east because they can't really, trust the results that they know somebody local would be, well, not necessarily. I mean, you can do it remotely as well, but, that knows the law of the land.
Yeah, precisely right. And the other benefit to it is when you're hiring on a fractional, you're allowing them that ability to make decisions at a C-suite level. So unlike a lot of consultants, and certainly not all of them, but unlike a lot of consultants who come in and they do a project and they don't really have management capability, you're hiring a fractional to come in and have that authority to make large decisions, to hire, to access budget. So, and again, you're getting it at such a small price tag. The hard part about I have with talking with companies is they don't quite understand. They still are in the mindset of I have to have you 40 hours a week or else it's not going to work out. And yet the clients I work with have been thrilled.
I know you talk about Adaptive Conversational Blueprint. That's something else I haven't come across. So you might educate me on that one as well.
Sure. I've been training and development for the past 30 years. I've done it in 6 countries. I've trained over 10,000 people. And over that time, I developed what I call a conversational blueprint, the things that need to happen in a sales conversation to establish value and to really create a sale. You know, Roy, when I look at a sales organization, I'm always amazed when somebody says, we close 1 out of every 100 people. So in order to close 3 people, we have to make 300 phone calls. It doesn't have to be like that. And honestly, we don't look at anything else in life like that. I don't think I need to find a wife, so I'm going to go out and see 520 people today, and that's going to do it for me. Instead, I narrow my choices down. I develop my manners and take them to the right place, and I listen to what they have to say to increase my odds of finding a partner. So when you take that back, you look at there's certain pieces of a conversation that are super important. And real briefly, it's their perception of you, your perception of them, what their dream outcome is, what their perception is of getting that dream outcome, the time delay, how long after you sell me your product am I going to see a benefit? And the last is the effort that it's going to take. So how much am I going to have to put into this to see a benefit? And what I've found, Roy, when I've worked with companies, is if you break a sales conversation into these 6 things, the value and the close rate of a sale skyrockets. And more importantly, if I get really good at this, I can listen to a sales rep and I can say, you know what you were missing? You were missing establishing your dream outcome. And then you can help the representative get better. But by structuring it to have certain pieces of value in specific spots in your conversation, you eliminate scripts, and people get really good at this, and they use it at home. They use it with their partner, with their mom or dad. It's amazing. It can change your life.
I mean, I've seen like one of the companies that I was involved with was like a franchising company helping people pick out the franchise. And I saw it was all scripts that they were using. And
Right.
But then I was looking at the conversion rates for some people, like some were brilliant. And it wasn't an average. It's like, you know, some people are just watching everything. And like even I suppose in my career, like even just buying stuff and liaising with people, it was always building the relationship and just connecting with them and not a numbers game. But most people, they just kind of, like as you mentioned, 1 in 100, and that seems to be the norm. So let's get, you know, if we want 10 sales, let's get 1,000 people in the door instead of going, why is it take? Why are we losing 99?
Exactly right. And that gets a little scary to me, that sales has come down to a numbers game instead of a relationship game. And companies hire based on that. Okay, so if each rep can make 50 calls a day and we close 1 out of every 100, I need 12 reps to close this many people. It's sales has gone from an art to just let's throw as much against the wall as we can, and by the law of averages, we'll get a couple of customers out of it.
I think the same goes for call centers, because there was a few people I knew that were working in call centers, and I don't know, they all have different kind of terminology, but it was like, it was kind of, they had to get through certain numbers. So even if I was dealing with you and your case was a bit different, but I could get it resolved, it was like they were just kind of getting rid of them to take the easy ones so that they'd look better and get the extra money. And like, and we're talking big companies that do that, and it's a sad thing to see.
It is, and I think companies don't want to invest the time to coach them. So, and I can understand that. Training and development is fractional by nature. We're the last to get budget, we're the first to get cut, and it's because companies don't see the value in that. But they're more than willing to spend the money to bring on 30 more sales reps to try and increase their averages. It's hard to comprehend, and it's cognitive dissonance. What you do and what you say you want to do are often just two different things. And then add on a further complication that they use the same script with everybody. But Roy, you and I both know that if I call people in one region, my conversation should be a lot different than those in another region. If I call somebody down in Georgia, I'm going to talk to them a lot differently than if I talk to them in New York City. And yet companies don't do any type of localization to try and understand that and adapt their sales. I help them do that.
I've seen one company, a guy was telling me they had a 50% turnover on a call center. To me, that's disgraceful.
Wow.
Yeah, that is disgraceful. And
that is.
As you say, they're not training the people. And I suppose with your experience and everything, because, if we go down the cold calling route, because that happens a lot in people, and a lot of people, you'll get the guy, yo, bro, what's happening? And that annoys me. Like, what's your take? What's the best way? Because unfortunately, some people, their business, whether it's they're working for somebody or they're themselves, and they have to do the cold calling. What kind of tips would you give people for that?
Well, first of all, let's talk a little bit about conditioning, because this is really what the cold call is about. When you get that phone call at dinner time, you're conditioned to think, oh, this has got to be a salesperson. If a person is sitting at the front desk and they're the first point of contact for a company, as soon as that phone rings, they're like, I'll bet it's a salesperson. And they get this frame of mind about them. So then what do we do to make it worse? They pick up and we go, hey, it's Jake. How are you? And Roy, how are you has become such non-conversation. It scares me. We just do it automatically and nobody really cares. It's just a quick back and forth.
When I went to America the first time, because in Ireland, when somebody says, how are you? They actually mean, how are you? And you tell them. And I remember being in one of these shopping places for clothes. I was buying shirts. And the person said, how are you? And I went to talk and they just turned and walked away. I was like, wait, did they just ask me how am I? So,
Yeah, my wife and I were out Christmas shopping this year, and a person walked by me and we met eyes, and they said, hi. I said, hey. And they said, fine, thanks. The how are you wasn't even said, and they're already feeding back. So people are preconditioned. So the first thing you need to do when you do a cold call is understand that as soon as that phone rings, things are against you. So what you need to do is break the conditioning. One suggestion may be, if you did your research before you called the company, you might say to them, oh man, I am so glad you picked up. Thank you. I was excited to call you today because I see you're a trucking company, and I was just curious how you're doing now post-pandemic. Just no sales bit whatsoever. Get them interested, and if you do your research before you call, this is a simple thing to do. They're going to get to, who is this? And you can go, oh, yeah, it's Jake. I'm sorry. I'm from so-and-so, but I just kind of got carried away because I was looking forward to speaking to you. The second thing you can do is you can just be honest. Hey, Roy, my name is Jake. I'm from ABC Company. And yes, this is a cold call. I apologize for that. But you know what? If you give me just 2 minutes, I really may be able to help you. All of these break the conditioning we have of the salesperson. And there's a lot of other openings, but those are two of my favorites.
It's like sometimes, I don't know if it's the same in the States, but I see it here because they tend to do the marketing calls here as well. Like sometimes you respond and they just keep going. They're not even listening to it. It's like they have their scripts and you can't rock the boat. And when I hear that, I go, I'm like, they have got zero training, zero, ability to connect with somebody.
Yeah, it's so true. And I teach something called the 210 rule, which is a way to make sure as a sales representative, you're going back and forth with a customer and you're not getting into diatribes. There's a sales software out there. You've probably heard of it. Have you heard of Gong?
What?
Have you heard of Gong, the sales call software?
No.
Gong.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a software that measures how much you talk versus how much your customer talks. And it's funny because when I coach people who are using this, the sales rep's talking time is like 85% and the customer's 15%. And I think it's a bet we've made, Roy. We've made a bet where people don't look forward to talking to sales reps because you don't talk to sales reps. There's not that back and forth. And training is really the answer. It's getting representatives to understand it's the cadence of the conversation, not the content that matters.
And based on the Gong thing, I'm assuming the conversion rate of, if you reverse that, as in you're letting the customer speak a lot more, the conversion rate probably goes through the roof.
Yeah, and you can actually see that. It's amazing. And I'm not stumping for the product. It's just an example of several softwares that are out there that do this kind of thing.
But, like, what else? I mean, when if I'm ringing somebody, like I make a connection with the secretary or receptionist, because a lot of times people kind of treat them like dirt.
Oh yeah,
and they're the gatekeepers because they're the ones that are actually. And I think a lot of people make that mistake as well. They're not like whether it's the cold calling to the thing, but they just assume if you want to talk to the director or whatever, the managing director, brushing them off is a big mistake.
I agree. And, you're even seeing that coming into LinkedIn. All of us get that LinkedIn sales message from somebody and they sell you like on the first message to you. And one thing I advocate with companies, and I do in my own outreach, is I don't even mention my product for the first 4 or 5 outreaches. Try and establish just a back and forth. We establish prospects and we do several calls, as follow-ups if they don't get sold the first time. I think we need to take a step back and we need to do a call or two to just get to almost know them first. And companies that I talk to, some say, I don't want to waste my time. That's a lot of calls. But the companies that do it, it's amazing the difference they see. And the way I try to get CEOs and owners to understand this is I say, if you want to know how your customer feels, call your company as a customer, pretend you're a customer and tell me what your experience is. And most owners come back to me and go, oh yeah, you were right.
Like, especially LinkedIn, but even Facebook. I mean, especially because I've got 6 podcasts, I get hundreds of, and like you said, they're just straight away like, I'm a podcaster, and they list the thing, and it's like a cut and paste for everyone. They don't even. But the problem is, and I'd say a lot of businesses must be getting a hassle like this, is like they don't even engage, like they just keep pushing.
Yes.
And sometimes, like, I might be interested. I go, okay, give me enough. They can't even answer what you've asked. So sometimes you might just be curious based on what they said. I can get organic reach and everything, which is anyone that's a podcaster, just they can't, right? So just you just assume maybe they can, and you ask them. 95% of them can't even reply to your question. They would just keep doing something, and I've seen that in lots of levels as well. And it's, like, that's all down to communication. Like, it's kind of, you might think it's just verbal, but even when typing, people still make the same mistake.
Yeah, and I think AI is making it a little bit worse because people are converting strictly to AI. And I don't think they realize how easy that is to detect, no matter how realistic it becomes. And I'm not against AI at all. I think it's amazing and it's got its place. But if you're using it to replace your sales process, I'm not sure that that's gonna fly. When the pendulum starts to swing back the other way, where you can combine combination with AI, I think that's going to be the key.
With the AI, because, like, one, instead of waiting, because unfortunately with customer service, sometimes you're waiting hours and hours to get through, and it wrecks your head. And the AI, if it's a average kind of thing, it can take you through it. But I like when it tells you and it gives you the options, and sometimes you can get it resolved. Yet the times they cheat you, they're making it look like it's a person, but once you've experienced in the shit, and I think they're actually hurting themselves so much by lying, pretending that it's a human.
I agree. And to give you a real life experience, I just bought a product online not long ago where I chatted back and forth with a sales rep. And after I had agreed to buy the product because I needed it for my business, I noticed there was a distinct change in the chat conversation. And I thought, you converted me to a chatbot. So I said to the chatbot, where's my sales representative? And they said, oh, they had to go to something else, but I'll be helping you now. I will never buy from that company again, ever. If now that you've got my money, you convert me over to a robot, forget it.
So I saw in your profile, Master Mason. I'm assuming.
Yes.
Yeah, like the block work and stuff like that. It's not a Freemason, Master Mason.
No, it is a Freemason actually.
Oh,
yeah, I am a Freemason.
Yeah. So Master Mason then, is that a 33 degree when you get Master Mason, or what's the?
Yeah, there's 3 degrees when you enter Masonry, and the third step in your entrance into Masonry is Master Mason. So, yeah, that's neat. I became a Master Mason about a year ago now, and it's a great organization. It's not this clandestine organization that's planning to take over the world. It's actually a very civic organization that does a lot of great things to help needy people.
See, I'm glad you say that, because, but I think there's two different types, because I have a friend, I think he was 18 degree, and he's telling me all the brilliant things that they were doing and everything. And I know he's an incredible person, but there's other ones. And I mean, there's different names as well. So
yeah.
The thing is, I think it's like, even say like with priests and stuff like that, everybody gets tarred with the same brush, yet there's genuine. and I think it's the same with the masonry, like that. It's like everybody go, that, and unfortunately, and I know that like with, from the people that I spoke to, I think that, like, obviously you help a lot of people as well, but like you kind of help each other, your own businesses as well, as kind of in-house, kind of helping to kind of become better entrepreneurs.
Yeah, and it's not so much that, it's more like a brotherhood. It's a fraternal organization. We get together to do civic events so that we can help the underprivileged. Like we'll do a Toys for Tots at Christmas, or we'll do food drives during the year. But it's a group of men that get together that really enjoy their time together. And granted, the organization has a really deep, almost puzzle-like past, and there's a lot of neat things to learn. But I was on vacation not long ago with my wife, and somebody saw my Mason ring. And I was like, oh, I would never join that. I said, just out of curiosity, why? He says, I'm not a military person. It's like, military person? So there's a lot of misconceptions about Masonry out there. But I would say that from my experience, it has been just great knowing these men and doing great things with them.
Very good. So I know, like at the start, I mentioned that you kind of went through losing everything, which I did as well. Yeah. I kind of lost everything, and then the marriage as well, because I lost my house in Ireland. I did a lot of investment properties, the whole lot. So, and I mean, we don't need to touch on that, but the reason that I think it's relevant and it helps is because there's millions that actually do that. But what happens is the way the banks, I mean, they shame you. They go, oh, we're going to publish it and all this. You're going, you slimy bastards, the way they do these different things. It's like they're worse than the schoolboy bully, the way that they do all of this. And then you see the corruption at the course, the corruption with the banks, the corruption with everything. And it's not until you actually go through it that you realize how bad. And the reason that I kind of say it's so important is there's millions have gone through this, especially you kind of, I think that probably the first financial crisis of 2008 started, or maybe a bit later. Yeah. It was kind of like a few years later it caught up with me. But I see that even now, the way interest rates have gone through the roof, utility bills and the products in the shops have gone through. So that a lot of people are, and just to kind of show that there's light at the tunnel. So perhaps kind of touch on your own story and how you overcame it.
Yeah, I actually had a great first part of my career. I have spoken in 47 states, been invited to speak internationally. I have 7 patents. Everything was going great. And then I had a couple of knee surgeries, and I wound up getting hooked on painkillers. And it led to a vicious spiral, a 2-year spiral that was just really rough to overcome. During that time, I lost my house, most of my savings, couldn't find a good job or even keep one when I got it. My wife and I just absolutely went downhill. And so about 10 years ago, it just all came to a big black hole for me. I always joke now, I say if the basement had a basement, that's where I was. Just really bad. So it was a lot of rebuilding. It was rebuilding my confidence, understanding that I could still provide value, and then rebuilding the past. And for a couple of years, it was just rebuilding connections and rebuilding a network and trying to get back to some level of normalcy. And then I was fortunate enough to meet and start dating my current wife. And that was a big plus as well. I have 2 beautiful kids, and now I have 2 stepkids, and life is great. But part of it was pulling myself up by the bootstraps, and the other part was finding someone who was supportive of everything that I wanted to do and allowing me to just take that journey. But the weird thing I found, Roy, and I think the thing that made this all work out this way is when you take so many risks and you lose so much, it's not taking risks anymore. It's just being normal, right? So when people say, why did you take that risk? It's like, it's not a risk to me anymore. Once you've lost everything, very little is a risk.
I don't know about you, but I think it's like you become more in doing things than acquiring things.
Correct. Yeah, 100%. It's no longer about the money. It's about getting yourself back, getting the self-respect back. And then once you do that, it's about pursuing a dream that you set aside or maybe even completely forgot about.
Absolutely. And the patents then, do you still have them, or did they go when everything went? And what were
They're owned by a previous company that I worked for. So because I was working for them at the time, they own the patents, but my name is still tagged to them. So I generate no income from those patents.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah, it is. But you know what? I signed an agreement with the company, and I hold no bitterness for them for keeping those patents. But it was a great time, and it's nice to be able to say that you have them. And, it's not something everybody can say.
Very good. And just finally, with the fractional officer, chief, like for those that are trying to get them type of positions, what's the best way of actually landing jobs like that?
A lot of it is outreach. First of all, you have to explain what fractional is to most people. And then you have to explain to them how it's going to benefit the company. And then on top of that, you have to talk about your services. The number one problem with fractionals today is just landing that job. And one of the services I offer is I coach fractionals and help them land their jobs, and I help them do business development. But that is easily the hardest thing. And we all have that problem, right? We're all trying to find those customers, and we all do the same level of prospecting. But I'm fortunate that I've gotten to the point where 95% of my work comes from referrals. So past customers refer me to somebody else, and they either reach out to me or ask me to reach out to them. And that's the ideal way to have things that, you can just get referrals.
And the thing is, it's always getting the first few clients. But I mean, once you got testimonials as well,
exactly,
that opens the door, because then people, even if they're open for it, can take a phone call and get it 10 times better rather than you kind of pitching constantly. But if you're getting a 95% referral rate, that's incredible. I mean, we're talking about statistics all through the conversation. There's very few that can actually say they get a 95% referral rate. That's optimum.
Well, I appreciate that. I've worked hard over the years to try and get to this point. And listen, I'm not going to lie. It's not always great. It's not like there's a steady stream. I still have to get out there and hit the pavement like everybody else. But It's nice when you know the people coming in or someone's referred you, because it kind of makes them a warm lead versus the cold lead, you know?
Yeah, that's the same with me with the podcasting. There's people, they just go, yeah, you need to talk to Roy, and it's just, yeah, you convert. They're already sold when they have a friend that said you need to talk to Jake. Jake will sort you out, and it's actually it's 10 times easier. It's enjoy, because then you can have the conversation as well of how you both know the person and everything. So you're not doing the salesy thing. You're just having a conversation. First, so how do you know Jake? Oh, we met and he's been doing this. And it just makes it so much nicer.
Yeah, it does. It makes it very easy. I will say you don't convert all the referrals. There are some referrals that just are dipping the toe in the water, as you probably well know. But how long does it take you to get your podcast up and running, Roy? That had to be a journey in and of itself.
I mean, I'm 6 years doing it now. So the speaking one was the first one. And then I just kind of did the meditation and everything. And I just kind of got systems. So like, I think with me, I mean, I come across a lot of people, they don't have one, or they have one and they're going, I can't even get the episodes out, and they just complain about everything. And it's like, you just know what you need to do and just do it. And then it's the enjoyment as well of just having decent conversations and knowing that you're helping people. And that in itself, it's not a job, it's just enjoyment that you're benefiting from people. And then by, obviously, the reason that I started doing the coaching was because I was after helping so many people. And then I found there was loads coming to me, but they were expecting me to just do it for them. Nobody was even saying, hey, come for a meal or something like that. I was like, they're not really, respecting my time. So then I just started saying, I offer this. And I was like, okay, people are actually interested in this. And then there was others that, it wasn't for them. They thought, yeah, not for me. But at the same time, I think I valued my time by creating that. And I know I'm helping people. And I think it's fantastic. It must be the same for you. You see a company and you see what you bring and it's benefiting. It's the same with me. I create a podcast and I see them getting into the top of the charts, and I see them just years on going, and you're going, okay, brilliant. You've had a ripple, plus they're helping people as well. So there could be hundreds based on just one person, and just rippling out. So I encourage everybody to start a podcast. I think it's a fantastic way of meeting people and just whatever you're passionate about. I mean, like, you could do one explaining what you're doing and bringing in the different clients and how you're helping, and then all the people that are interested in that. It's a niche that, I don't know, does it even exist? But I mean, there would be a lot of people that would be interested in that. And, people just have to kind of decide, would people be interested in what I'm doing? And so I'd encourage everybody to get on the podcast journey.
I would say that the coolest thing about what you're doing is you're a giver personality. And I think the giver personality tends to draw more people. If you're more interested in giving than taking, I think it creates a lot more results. So I applaud you for being that way. That's a wonderful trait to have.
Very much. And Jake, I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. You've shared some fantastic tips, but how can people get in contact with you?
They can go to my website, which is jakestahlconsulting.com. It's right there up top. And you can get in touch with me on LinkedIn. I am on LinkedIn just as Jake Stahl, so you can reach out to me there. I offer everybody that gets in contact with me a 1-hour free consult, so we'll find out if we're a match. Because in all honesty, Roy, I'm not a fit for everybody, and not everybody's a fit for me. So one of the big things we do during that hour is determine what your issues are, and if we're able to work together, and if we are, great, and if we're not, that's okay. I'll gladly refer you to somebody I know that you may be able to work with. But yeah, so either through LinkedIn or through my website, you can get a 1-hour free consult, and I'd be happy to talk to anybody.
I'll make sure I put the links both on the audio and the video. And just on what you said there, to make sure you're a match for them, because that's something I do as well. If I don't think that I will bond with this person, I recommend somebody else, because I don't want them sucking my energy. And sometimes, and I remember even doing property and stuff like that, one of the guys was taking about 50% of my time, and I fired him. I just kind of said, yeah, we need to go to somebody else. But most people wouldn't do that. It was the best thing I've ever done. And I like the fact that you've mentioned that. I think it's important, because a lot of people, they think, oh, I have to have each client. No, you don't.
Right.
If you don't think that you're a match, like, especially if it's a long-term thing, what you're doing as well. Sometimes you don't want to be working with somebody that's going to be abusing it and just thinking that they click their fingers and you come running, and you can see that from. That's why, like, a 15-minute call doesn't work. So that's why, I commend that you actually give an hour, because you're deciding, does this work both ways? So I think that's good tip as well for people.
Well, I'm not doing anybody any favors by struggling to help them or giving them something that is not in my wheelhouse. And I know with a lot of entrepreneurs and fractionals I work with privately, the two biggest questions are, how do I determine if they're a fit, and how do I fire a client? It's difficult. And the best way to not have to fire a client is to give them that hour to start and determine whether you're the right fit or not.
Jake, thank you very much. And yeah, as mentioned, I'll have all the links both on the audio and the video.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having me, Roy. This was a true pleasure. I enjoyed speaking with you.
So that's all for the Speaking Podcast. You'll find all our episodes on speakingpodcast.com. Until next week, take care. So I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. As mentioned at the start, you can find my 6 podcasts on roycalling.com or scan the QR code if you're looking to start a podcast or do a podcasting tour, help with that. Also, if you're looking for a virtual assistant, we also have that service. And you can help the show by visiting the store, supporting our sponsors, or making a donation. Until next week, take care.